Welcome back to another episode of Southern Scrap Nation's podcast. Your host, as always, Daniel Jonas. Thank you. We're here today to talk about UFC Manchester UFC 304. Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad in the welterweight championship match, along with Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades. Both of these are rematches. Both of them ended in weird injuries, so we're breaking those down today. But before we do that, make sure to like and subscribe to the podcast, and to check out southernscrapnation.com for all your, if you want to get in contact with me or if you want to start training with the team here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So before we get into that, it is July 24th. My clock is wrong. It is 10, not 9:23. It's 10 here in Charlotte. Why is my clock wrong? It's weird. But we are going to get into, we're going to go through the whole card, early prelims all the way to main card and the main event, starting from the bottom. Disclaimer, don't know a lot of these European fighters, but we will figure it out on the way. That being there, and yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. All right. Like I said, Shauna Bannon versus Alice Ardeline is going to be the first matchup. It looks like Alice, I don't know if she's even fought in the UFC. Oh, she's got a picture, so she must have. Brazil versus Ireland, classic. So this is, I was explaining this, or I was talking about this with a buddy of mine the other day. The Brazil card seemed like all fights were layups for the Brazilian fighters, right? All the Brazilian fighters seemed like favorites. And until the night of the fight, it seemed like all the Brazilian fighters were destined to win. Obviously, the Anthony Smith and Victor Petrino fight didn't end up that way, but that's more on Petrino than it was on Anthony Smith. But even in that sense, like you saw, obviously one was geared to be the favorite and geared to be it was like his geared for him to beat a former title contender and veteran of the sport. Whereas in this card, it seems like a lot of potential upsets, and on paper, the favorites are sometimes on the other side, just like in this fight where you have Alice versus Shauna, strawweight fight. You have Shauna, who weighed 115. This could actually be wrong, but 7-2, 5-1, and the favorite is from the Brazilian side. Let's take a look at her last fight. Does she have a page? So her last fight was a loss to... Oh, maybe they changed up the card. Maybe they changed up the fight. Give me 1 second. Let me see. Because sometimes they change it. No. Oh. But I think that's a different person. Yeah. Okay. So, never mind. This is a different fighter. Not even her. Alice Alderline is someone completely different. She's out of Birmingham, England. Oh, she's like the famous girl that... Yeah, she's an OnlyFans star that became an MMA fighter. Oh, in that case, put your money on Shauna Bannon. Shauna Bannon. That's who I'm going for. I don't even know if this Alice... I don't even know if this Alice Alderline is the favorite. I mean, it kind of seems like it, but Not a big fan of that. And that makes sense if she weighed in at 140. She might be way bigger. And this might be a catch weight. Let me check. I personally just not a fan of that. Straw weight, no, it's a straw weight fight. 9-5 versus 5-1. Shauna Bannon. I don't know if this is a late replacement or whatnot, but I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to the one that was preparing for the fight and also doesn't have a 9-5 record. But let's move on from that. Let's just move on from that completely. Next, we have Mick Parkin versus Lucas Brzezinski. Definitely a Polish name. Poland versus England. English fighter. The favorite here in Mick Parkin. 9-0 versus 9-4-1. I mean, it would be hard not to bet against the guy who's 9-0, looking for his 10th win, making him clean 10-0. Heavyweight fight. Great way to start off the card, to be honest. I mean, besides the first one, but in the second fight, definitely gonna go with Mick. It would make the most sense as far as beating Mo Usman in his last fight. Already tested, beat Machado, Pogus, unanimous decision. He's beaten these heavyweights to the bell, so. And this guy is definitely undersized for the weight class. And Lucas Brzezinski, he's tall, probably fights with his head up, and he's currently on a 3-fight losing streak. Maybe he won his last fight. Doesn't say. Yeah, his last fight doesn't say. Let's go ahead and check, actually. 9-4-1. He might be, and he won his last fight, so he clinged to that job on his last fight, but he won by decision. I mean, he's not even that much taller for heavyweight. He's just 6'3". I just think he's undersized. For 238 weighing in and a division where his opponent's 6'4", he's going to be equal in height and has the weight on him. I mean, it makes the most sense. Following that, you have Sam Patterson versus Keffer Crosby. Ireland versus UK. Sam Patterson is the favorite in this fight, coming off of a win over Lanice, welterweight fight. Lost his debut against Ashmov. He submitted Lanice in his last fight in the first round. And then you have Keffer Crosby. Lost his last fight to up-and-cover Kevin Josette through a submission. First round submission win for Sam Patterson. First round submission loss for Crosby. Let's keep the Sam Patterson train rolling. He's 6'3", at 170. It's going to be hard to get past that reach, especially if you're 5'10". And if you can identify that his weakness is a submission game, because in the first round, you're dry. If you're a good fighter, and you got the good warm up in the back, you're getting a little bit of a sweat, so you're not entirely going in completely dry. But if you can recognize that this opponent has a hard time with submissions right off the bat, because the more you get, the more sweaty you get, the more you can explode out of a submission and not rely on the technique. Whereas in the beginning of the fight, before you're completely gone through a three round fight. If you don't have the good submission defense, you can get caught with things, but more on the fact of like you're not doing the right defense. So Sam Patterson has a proficient submission game if he's getting them off in the first round, or his opponents don't have a good submission defense, and that's why he's getting them off in the first round. So if I'm him, I'm trying to take this fight to the ground or submit him standing up if you can. But I'm trying to latch a submission on early in the round, test that submission defense, and I think for Sam Patterson, that's the way he's going to go about it. I mean, that's the way I would recognize it. And then in the early prelims, which is kind of crazy because this is an early prelims and it's not even headlining it, it's a flyweight fight between Muhammad Mokaev versus Manal Kape. This fight's supposed to have happened already, and Muhammad is the favorite in this because he's 12-0, whereas Manal is 19-6. They've talked back and forth. They've gone back and forth online, and they've been trying to make this fight happen for a while. I think this is going to be one of the start of the upsets. Manal Kape lost to Pantoja, lost to Nicolau, split decision. You could probably argue he won that fight. His only real loss has been to the champion. Everybody else KO, TKO, decision, and he's done it kind of with ease. Besides Pantoja and obviously Nicolau. And then the last fight that Mokaev had, he barely beat Alex Perez. I think that Muhammad's going to get fraud checked in this fight. This is where I think the first underdog and upset of this card will lie. I definitely believe that Manal Kape is going to be hard to take down and try to implement some submission attack on him. I mean, the height disparity in this is 2 inches. It's not that big of a deal, but the lower hips is going to be harder for Muhammad to get in on those takedowns. And then you're going to be kind of forced to strike with Manal, and Manal is way better at the striking and more dynamic than Alex Perez. Has more intent. So when you can't set those takedowns up and they're going to be a lot sloppier, figure you're going to get a TKO win by Kape in either the second or third round. Or you might just catch him straight up. But I think you're going to look at a second round TKO. Manal Kape. And then you have to end the early prelims, get us into the normal prelims. You have Oban Elliott versus Preston Parsons. Win, loss, loss. Lost to Danny Rodriguez. Beat Elder. Big win because Elder just had a great win against who was that? That was an Altitude. In his last fight, and then he lost to Giles. He beat Semmelsberger. The win against Elder to me is bigger than the win against Semmelsberger. And then you have Oban Elliott, Welsh fighter. Surprised he's the underdog. He beat Woodburn in a unanimous decision. Probably shouldn't be taking Woodburn to his unanimous decision. Let's go. This is what. Let's see. Oban Elliott. Let's see. I'm gonna check out this Oban Elliott highlight because I want to see the type of fight. What type of fight he brings. I don't need all that. I just need some highlights of him fighting. Because I want to see if he's a Pressure fighter. If he's not a pressure fighter, then you can kind of expect. You can kind of expect. No, that's fake. I guess he's got pretty good wrestling. No, he doesn't have good wrestling. Let's go Preston Parsons. Just because I think the pressure game of him and the wrestling is going to give Oban a really hard time. And as we all know, United States wrestling is a big kryptonite to any of these English fighters. So just think about that going into any of these picks, that American wrestling causes problems for English fighters. So when you have a fighter who's highly based in that wrestling pressure style, he can give some of these fighters a hard time. I mean, 9 wins by submission, takedown accuracy 44%, takedown defense 80%. Let's see the takedown defense of Oban Elliott. Doesn't tell me. But I'm going to go Preston Parsons, another favorite. Then you have, to start off the prelims, you have Modestas Bukauskas versus Marcin Prachnio. Modestas Bukauskas had a pretty bad loss, probably career-changing loss to Khalil Roundtree. This is the guy that Khalil Roundtree stepped into his knee. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Khalil Roundtree did that sidestep kick into his knee. He went on to beat Pedro Munoz in a 3-round decision. Went to beat Pauga in a 3-round decision, and then he lost to Petrino via KO. Man, if I'm fighting him, I'm attacking that leg that was completely destroyed. He's the favorite against Marcin Prachnio, just because Prachnio lost his lost submission to Petrino, lost to Clark. So you're getting 2 fighters that have lost to the same fighter. He beat Khalil Roundtree. MMA math doesn't always work out, but we're going with one guy that won his last fight, another who lost his last fight. I'm going to go with Prachnio. I know he's the dog in this, but I'm going to go with Prachnio. Not that I think his win over Khalil Roundtree has anything to do with it. I think just styles make fights. And if you got a guy who he's probably losing to getting taken down, as you can see, decision by Kevin Clark, probably based off of the wrestling. And then lost to Petrino versus a submission. He beat Knight, who's a stand-up fighter. Linz is not really a stand-up fighter, but has that threat, whereas Bukauskas is going to be a stand-up fighter. I think this is where Prachnio has a better chance, or a fighter with better chance, and where Bukauskas is usually the taller fighter. In this fight, not the case. So I'm going to go with Prachnio. Probably gritty kind of win. Takedown defense, 78%. Takedowns on average more than the other. He lands more per minute. He's got more KOs. I'm going to go Prachnio. Then you have Jake Hadley versus Kaulan Loran. Let me see if this is right, because I know. Yep. Okay. Um, this guy's a little tank. This dude won his last fight, or last two fight, or he won his last fight, lost his first fight against Lapilus, won his last fight versus Pacheco. Takedown accuracy, 5 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, 7 of his wins. KO, average fight time. Jake Hadley's last loss was to Johnson. He lost to Durden. He beat Gordon. I mean, he's got the experience on his side, but I think I'm going to go with the Irishman. Wow, he is not the favorite. I don't know. I guess they're basing it on, maybe this is like a short notice fight. Let me see. Jake Hadley. Yeah, okay, so it is a short notice fight. All right. Based on that knowledge, short notice fights hard to predict in the case of, like, who does it benefit? Does it benefit the guy that's been training, obviously, the whole 6 weeks? Sure. Or does it benefit the guy who comes in, no pressure, and I mean, it's 3 rounds. You should be ready for 15 minutes fight if you're at that level, if you're 9-1. Maybe you don't have a lot of time to prepare for the guy, but the guy was preparing 6 weeks for someone else. So at that level, sometimes being over prepared for somebody else actually is a detriment, because then you have to shift everything to somebody new. And that's where I think a guy like Kalan can go in there, and if he puts pressure and just short circuits Jake's brain with just, this is a completely different fight. Who was Jake supposed to fight? Doesn't tell me. I'm just gonna go Kalan. I'm gonna go with him. I feel like there's an upset in the works here. Yeah, another underdog pick. Then you have Bruna Brazil versus Molly McCann. Molly McCann, the favorite in strawweight. I don't know if she's the favorite because of just it being at home. She beat Belbitsa. She lost really quick to Stolyarenko. She lost to Erin Blanchfield. Awesome. Stolyarenko, kind of like the Ronda-esque. Oh, see, my time changed back. Ronda-esque kind of fighter. Just has that one thing. She beat Hannah. Types of people that I'm seeing that she's beating are a certain caliber. And let's see what kind of caliber Bruna Brazil is. I mean, she lost her last fight against a Muay Thai fighter. She beat Bannon. She lost to Gomes. Yeah, Molly McCann's probably your best bet here. It looks like they brought this girl in for Molly to beat. Still 14-6 is nothing to worry too much about if you're the Bruna Brazil corner. She clearly has a way of losing, and that is through submissions. But she's got no submission average. So, Molly McCann it is. I'm going to go back. I'm going to change Shauna Bannon to Alice Ardeline. Just because of, yeah, Alice. I mean, sure. Alice Ardeline. All right. Then you have Nathaniel Wood versus Daniel Pineda. Is this also a short notice fight? Nathaniel Wood. Nope. Okay. This has just been the fight. So Nathaniel Wood versus Daniel Pineda. Nathaniel Wood, featherweight's been looking fantastic. They're both coming off losses, though. I think Nathaniel Wood, just being the younger and has the experience in the UFC, it boasts well for him. His last fight, he lost through unanimous decision, but I mean everyone else he's beat. I put Daniel Pineda in an Andre Fili kind of realm as far as a guy that's been around, seen everything, but you can put the pressure on him. This was at 135. So I'm gonna go Nathaniel Wood. Probably the easiest out of the prelims for me to pick. Daniel Pineda, he had that resurgence, but then once he started going against guys in that higher echelon, started losing. Cup Swanson, right? Alex Caceres. And Nathaniel Wood definitely belongs there with them. So, go to Nathaniel Wood. All right. Now going to the main card. But before we do that, remember to like and subscribe to the podcast, Southern Scrap Nation. Also, follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, as well as come check out the gym. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. Check out the gym. Join the team today. SouthernScrapNation.com. Don't forget it. All right, so our featherweight opener for this main card at UFC 304 in Manchester, England. 10 p.m. Eastern Time. 5 a.m. Manchester time. Because it's all about the West Coast. It's kind of crazy that they do that. They do that. I mean, the fighters are fighting at like 4 in the morning, but they're pandering to the West Coast people. Doesn't make any fucking sense. People in the East Coast, when they fight, they do it at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. too. It's not as bad, but I mean, think about it. You're a fighter. You have to fight at midnight. If you're in England, you're getting up at like 4 in the morning and training. You should just pander to whatever the event is at. I'm okay watching the fights at 4 in the afternoon. Honestly, better for me. Then that means I have all night to not have to watch fights and try to stay up. Especially if they're a snooze fest. Like 2 weekends ago, where I was falling asleep / fell asleep during the Tracy Cortez and Rose Namajunas fights. Ugh. This past weekend was pretty good. But snooze fest on the last one. They should just do it at the time that the fighters normally would fight. Like normally you train at like 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. or so, 7, 8 p.m. Do the fights then. Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. Giga Chikadze. Featherweight. Arnold Allen, I think, boxes up Giga Chikadze. He's got better jiu-jitsu. He's got better wrestling. Now you got to watch out for Giga's Giga kick. The problem is Arnold Allen's a southpaw. So unless Giga starts switching up stances, but his liver is on the other side. So it's not really prone to just getting hit the same way as if Giga was fighting an orthodox fighter. Giga won his last fight against Caceres. Great, but he lost against Calvin Kattar. And you know how he lost against Calvin Kattar? Because Calvin Kattar's a good boxer. And Arnold Allen's a fantastic boxer. So I think Arnold Allen has a way better chance and is geared to winning this stylistically. Puts Giga on the back foot, boxes him up, takes him down if he needs to. Rinse and repeat. Also, Giga's he's got reach, but I think the experience on Arnold Allen's side. And his last loss was to Max Holloway, or his last fight was against Max. Oh no, it was against Evloev, and he won that fight. I mean, Evloev was shooting for your dear life, and so I think this is going to be his ability to go, oh, cool. Now I finally get someone who's going to stand with me and not going to just dive at my legs the whole time. Whereas now Arnold Allen has more ways to win, where he's got the wrestling. And I think it's been good for his career. Lose to Max Holloway, lose to Mosar. He's the kind of fighter that gets the rub. He's going to do fantastic. Arnold Allen. Then you have Christian Leroy Duncan versus RoboCop. Gregory Rodriguez. Gregory Rodriguez has those awesome wins, has those crazy knockouts. KO'd Brad Tavares in the third. KO'd Tululin. But he lost. He had the potential knockout of the year. Lost to Fajeda. Christian Leroy Duncan, though, he just does his thing. It's hard. He's not really gotten out of. It's hard to get him out of his rhythm. And so at first it seems like nothing's happening, and then he finds a way to win. And I think against the older fighter, you're just going to end up seeing that. Not saying that this couldn't be one. I mean, every fight's 50-50. But this is one of those where if RoboCop can find the shot before the end of the bell or before the end of the third, like every fighter's plan, sure, but I think the range and length of Christian Leroy is going to give RoboCop a hard time and slowly but surely set a knockout up for him. So I think Duncan by finish in this fight. Then you have the start of the three main fights. Bobby King Green, or I guess King Green now, versus Paddy Pimblett. Bobby somehow is the favorite in this fight. I mean, he does do very well against up-and-comers, has done a very good job as a gatekeeper. Paddy Pimblett does have that problem of keeping his chin up. I can see Paddy winning this with the judo. That's how he's going to get Green. That's how he's going to get Green to the ground. Wrestling him is not the best way to go about it, but a head kick or a takedown, I think, are the ways to win that Bobby Green's going to win this fight. I think Paddy, as much as it would be one of those, like, see, told you, shouldn't have that chin up in the air kind of moments. I think it's going to be one of those where Paddy comes forward, and as much as Green is a counter fighter and has good footwork, Patty's just going to overwhelm him with forward pressure. If it does get to the cage, he's just going to take him down. If he does stand with him, it's going to be a lot of kicking. He's not even going to play the boxing game with him. So I think it's going to be a submission by Paddy Pimblett. I couldn't give you the over/under on when, but as much as it's a toss, it's a pick'em. King being the favorite, Green being the favorite. I think we're going to see Paddy find a way to submit him. Because it's not that it's his kryptonite, but it's the submission average. And they're about the same on strikes absorbed. King has better defense, but I think Paddy is going to find that way to get to the ground. Then in the main event, or not the main event, but you have the co-main event, Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blaydes. Tom defending an interim championship. Defending the interim championship. Not even the heavyweight championship, but the interim championship. If I'm the UFC, I'm pulling a fast one on John, and I'm going, this fight has been changed to a heavyweight championship and is for all the marbles. John, you lost that shit with the fighting the women and the drug stuff and the bicep and the not fighting and the not fighting and the not fighting. Yeah, I think they should just change this to the heavyweight championship. Don't even worry about this interim BS. Tom lost this last fight due to kicking the leg and then blowing his knee out. When you first start the fight, Tom keeps his chin up in the air, and he came kind of close to getting, not knocked out, but he got clipped by Curtis, like, coming in the first, 30 seconds. I mean, you can watch the fight. It's not that long. People say he was winning. Curtis was winning the first 30 seconds. It's not, you can't really judge a fight that way. But the Tom keeping his chin up in the air does give me a little bit of hesitancy, because Curtis Blaydes' striking has gotten somewhat better to the point where he does keep his chin down, at least. He's got fantastic wrestling. I think this is a fight for Curtis Blaydes to win and upset Tom Aspinall. I know he doesn't really talk much. He doesn't really put himself in the spotlight, and this feels like destiny for Tom Aspinall. I think Curtis Blaydes beats Tom Aspinall. I think it's stylistically, Curtis Blaydes is a terrible matchup for him, if not the worst matchup in the heavyweight division. Just having the American wrestling, which stops Tom from being able to use his black belt in jiu-jitsu. And then when it comes to striking, the clear boxing advantage. You think Tom's going to be as keen to throw a leg kick at Curtis Blaydes as he was last time? Well, I definitely wouldn't be. So I think if Curtis Blaydes just continues the forward pressure or allows Tom to go first, chin in the air, stay true to his defense, and return with a right hand, or even just a jab, I think he can cause a lot of problems. And I think Curtis Blaydes in the hesitancy of Tom Aspinall with the striking and the chin up, I think we're going to get an upset where Curtis Blaydes flatlines Tom Aspinall. Right hand over the top. He's not going to gunsling with Tom Aspinall. If it starts to get crazy, he's going to shoot on him. And Tom's going to be so content with the jiu-jitsu game that he's going to try to go for submissions on Curtis, but Curtis is good enough in the submission defense that that's not going to be an issue. I got Curtis Blaydes, man. People forget, man. Curtis Blaydes has really good wrestling. No, Curtis Blaydes has good wrestling, but he's also got the fantastic... He's got... Not fantastic, but he's got better hands than what people give him credit for. He loses to big, heavy power punchers. Derek Lewis. Ngannou. But guys that are a little bit more technical, that don't just shut you off with one punch, he does a lot better with. Chris Dawkins, Jairzinho Rosenstrike, Volkov, like these guys that don't just... And not that Tom doesn't have one punch knockout power, because every heavyweight technically does. It's just that Tom has to set it up more. He's been dipping his hands in petrol. I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that means. That's crazy. That's old school stuff. But I think just the wrestling fear and the fear that Curtis Blades doesn't have with like a power puncher is gonna do well for him. So I got Curtis Blades, man. And then in the main event, you got Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad. When it comes to this fight, Belal obviously he's been on a run since the loss to Leon and kind of changed his style, if you will, by going forward with boxing. He's been on a 5-fight winning streak. That's all great and stuff. I think we've already seen this fight. I think Leon Edwards beats Belal Muhammad. Either TKO, he's faster. The wrestling isn't an issue. I think Leon's wrestling is so good. It's just, which Leon do we get that night? If it's the Leon that fought Belal the first time, Leon all day. But the problem is Leon starts to get in his head and he doesn't fight as he should. And he starts to allow the other person to go first. And the more that they start to dictate, the more boring the fight gets. But he's proven he can knock out Kamaru Usman. He can stop the wrestling of Kamaru Usman. He's better on the ground than Kamaru Usman. He took his back in that second fight in the first round. All these things play to his ability, and I think it being at home and all of this, even though my point being is he's better than Belal everywhere. It's just the mentality that gets him. But I think having someone that he kind of know the speed and timing, I think he just beats up Belal again. I don't think you're either getting a decision or you're getting some sort of like TKO situation, but you're not getting like you're just, it might just be a really boring fight, or it might be just a boring fight up until. Belal's going to try to go forward. That doesn't bode well for him, because even in the last fight that he had with Leon, it's not like he went forward. But anytime he did, he would get caught a little bit. Now that he's going forward, he's going to get caught a whole lot. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I don't see him. He's not like gotten better with his hands. He just goes forward now. He was getting caught in the Sean Brady fight. He is like, his forward pressure doesn't mean his boxing's gotten better. It just means now he goes forward and also gets touched. Maybe he throws a jab a little bit more often than usual. But I think that plays more into Leon's like, oh, you want to come forward? You're going to get caught more. You're going to get caught more quickly. And then he's going to try to wrestle him. And then Leon's going to defend the wrestling. It'll be on to Leon not to bite so much on the wrestling. But I think the clinch work of Leon Edwards plus the kicking game is just, he's got more tools. So I have Leon winning, whether a decision or TKO. So those are my picks. Back to the bottom. You have Alice Ardeline. Had to make the change because I think she's just bigger than this girl. Then you have Mick Parkin. You have Sam Patterson. Manal Cap. Preston Parsons. Prachnio. Kaulan Loran. Molly McCann. Nathaniel Wood, Arnold Allen, Chris Leroy Duncan, Patty Pimblett, Curtis Blades, and Leon Rocky Edwards. Those are my picks for Edwards versus Belal Muhammad 2, UFC 304 in Manchester, England. This has been your host, Daniel Jonas. Don't forget, check out Southern Scrap Nation. We are located in Charlotte. Drop a like and subscribe to the podcast. We are located in Charlotte. Come train with us. Come join the team. Been your host once again. Thank you. Until next time. Peace.